Lace 'em up, let's start the show. We're digging in with Tripp. 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 We're digging in with Tripp today, yeah.
As I look around this locker room, the Hurricanes are in Ottawa right now preparing for Whalers Night. There are 11, just counted them, 11 nameplates of guys that were not on this team last year. 11. And the Hurricanes, as we tape this, having beaten Vegas last night, are 29-8-2. When you have the guts to, after almost winning a President's Trophy, create that type of changeover, you have to dig in. And that's what Don Waddell did, in my view. He is a true veteran general manager. He's also the president and has been for a few years here in Carolina. But just let that marinate. All of those new faces, a lot of concern, a lot of disagreement from the fan base. And currently 29-8-2. That's shovel in hand right there. And as I look at Vincent Trocheck's locker, Nino Niederreiter's right off to the side. These are two trades that Don's made with a very attacking mindset that are core parts of the Hurricanes' current success. I love the fact that he's been aggressive, and that's in his mindset. Not everything's going to work out. Even aggressive and, the lottery ball that moved up in the draft, a ton of luck involved to get Svechnikov. So all of these reasons, I'm really excited to dig in with Don momentarily. Thanks to the great people at Voodoo Ranger. They have a stand here in the building up above in PNC. Talk about a bold, but a fluid, smooth finish IPA that Voodoo Ranger brings. I don't know if they were upset that the Rangers came in here last Friday night and got beat, but I'm sure the taps at that Voodoo Ranger stand were flowing. And thank you for their long-standing sponsorship of Digging In. Before we introduce Don, I encourage all of you to check out our ever-expanding merchandise line. We actually just introduced the Assassinating Aho winter hat. I got a chance to do play-by-play. That's the first goal I called. And all of the terrific stuff that Sebastian does with Oulu All-Stars, with former Hurricane Jussi Jokinen, Pecorine. His jersey is about to be retired in Nashville. All proceeds from this beautiful Finnish flag-colored winter hat will go to Oulu All-Stars. All sorts of great merchandise that's out there at digintrip.com. Please continue to rate and review our show. Be honest. Don and I will actually talk about honesty during this episode. Rate and review the show on all audio platforms as well as YouTube. Without further ado, let's dig in with Don Waddell. Don, great to see you. For those watching on YouTube, I want to start with this setting. I mean, I haven't been in this locker room for a while because of COVID protocol and whatnot. This is so drastically different than what this locker room was in years past, and that's not even talking about the practice facility. Can you maybe speak to that, because you've executed the changes, whether it be for the current roster or recruiting players coming from other teams, free agency? How much of a game changer this is?
Oh, 100%. It's one of the things that I give a lot of credit to Tom Dundon. When he bought the team, and he came down here, I said, we'd like to do a lot of changes down here. And he was fully supportive. Also, the Centennial Authority, who owns the building, was very receptive and supported it financially also. So there's a lot of people that put a lot of time and money into getting it here. And I know if you weren't here before, you didn't know what it was like, but all the guys that were here, particularly the Stalls and even Aho and some of these guys that seen it initially, it was a huge change when they came back. And to be able to have facilities that the players want to be at, it's not about just coming to the rink for practice and games. You want players to be here, spend time together. We have a shooting gallery outside, we have ping pong tables, we have a lot of space, and then duplicated at the practice facility out in Morrisville.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You speak about the guys. I'm driving over to tape this, and Truthfully, as your analyst, I looked at the changeover on the roster, and the game isn't played on paper, but I said, Don's improved the team. Okay, there were a lot of people out there that didn't think so, okay? So I'm proud to do a video on the way over. I mean, that's digging in. That's following your intuition. So with regards to the name of the show being Digging In, this unique group that you put together at 28, 9, and 2, how do they define digging into this point for you?
Well, there's a lot of people involved, obviously, when you build your roster, and a lot of decisions are made, collectively, and, at the end of the day, being the general manager, you have to make that decision. But, to me, you want guys that care about each other and care about being successful as a group, not individually. And obviously it starts with Rod. We all know Rod does a tremendous job with these guys, but the summer was probably the most difficult summer because of, we let some very popular players go. We didn't sign some guys that we just thought we needed to turn the page on. And you roll the dice sometimes, but you roll the dice knowing that you have a plan in place. I said all along, our goaltending last year was good. There was nothing wrong with our goaltending until we got in the playoffs, and we just felt to take that next step, we had to be better. Did we know we were going to end up with Freddie Anderson with the numbers he's got right now? We knew there was 5 or 6 free agent goalies out there, some guys available to trades, and we knew we would have somebody's going to look at our team and say they have no starting goalies, that we would be a pretty good destination for somebody. So it's all worked out from that end. And it's I never make a decision. We don't ever make a decision to hurt anybody individually or our fans. We make decisions because we all want to be the best we can be. We bring the best group of guys that we can, that we know can get us to that next step. And we've had some success here recently, but the next amount of success has got to be talking about playing for the Stanley Cup. And that's where we feel like we needed to make some of those changes.
One follow-up in one of the roster changes, I'm looking at your college numbers in Northern Michigan and then your IHL numbers. I think 352 or 356 games in the IHL. As a defenseman, you were a point-a-game guy. So, whether dealing for Dougie Hamilton, who played very well here as a Hurricane, you acquired Adam Fox. We know what he's gone on to do and what Tony DeAngelo has done this year. Do you have a particular affinity for, because it's what you were.
Right.
I never thought about that until today. A point-a-game guy over that amount of time, the International Hockey League, that's pretty impressive.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, but the one thing we know in hockey is you got to score goals. Yeah. Yes, my coach would say if we give up 0 every game, we're going to win. But we all know that the team that scores the most goals is probably going to have the most success. And when you look up your lineup, we got to defend well. There's no doubt about it. But you got to be able to put up numbers. And when you have people like Tony that come available, and obviously we've talked about this many times, the research we did, talking to him all the times, we really felt it was a good fit for us. And halfway through the season, I think you could say it's probably been a better fit than any of us have ever expected by the numbers he's putting up. But I do like offensive defensemen, I have to admit. Mm-hmm. Was my pedigree, I guess, coming through hockey my whole career, and it's something that it takes these guys. Like Tony's one of the best passers I've ever seen, passing the puck, and you're going to need those kind of guys from the blue line to help out with your forwards, not only advancing the puck to them, but also chipping in on the offensive side.
And when you talk about caring about each other too, that's the common, the necessary trait you need to win. I want to go back. You've told this story before, but I was just looking at Northern Michigan, who bounced me, by the way, my freshman year in double overtime in the NCAAs. One-time Hartford pick Mike Harding. But the 79-80 year, your numbers were terrific. And you had a leg injury that resulted in you being one of the last cuts for the 80 Olympic team, and we know what happened there. Don, what was that like? One of the greatest sports stories in the 20th century, and you could have been a part of it, something that was out of your control. That's digging in that you move forward. What was that experience like?
Well, I always joke around that if I not broke my leg and made a team, maybe we wouldn't have won. David Christian, it was a forward and got moved back on defense and did a tremendous job for the guys. And, I was real happy because I got to spend a lot of time with the guys that year. I think it was 18 games with them and travel to Europe and do I know what they went through, and I could feel for them. You know, Mike Rizzioni, soon after they had won the gold medal, came up to Northern, and we spent a weekend together. You know, there's a lot of guys that I stayed in touch with. Kenny Morrow, a very good friend of mine through the years. I was, you know, whenever you're with a team, even though you're not with them when they have the success that they had, you really feel for them because you know what it took to get there and what their obstacles were. I mean, nobody ever was thinking, you know, at the time that you'd have to go the route they did, but everybody knew it was going to be a tough route, and they didn't know, you know, how the outcomes were going to come. And when they were being prepared by Coach Brooks as best they can, and the players rose to the occasion. I mean, I think you talk about team peaking at the right time. There's no doubt that as the Olympics started, it started a little slow, but as the games got more important, you know, it was a game that I think every guy would say they played the best game of their life when they against the Soviet Union and then in the final game.
You've coached nearly 100 games in the National Hockey League, aside from all the years that you've been a manager and a president. Peaking at the right time. I mean, sure, a lot of that's luck. What goes into that? I know every situation's different.
Yeah, you know, you got to plan out. You know, we've started talking about it. We're talking about it today about, you know, planning out. You know, as the season goes on, you know, there's games that you may be able to find that you've got to give a player a night off. You know, we're going to play 16, 17 games in March and April. Those are a lot of hockey games. And so, you know you're going to have some lulls in a year. I think we had ours because we didn't play any games. And then the couple games we played, we weren't very good when we had, I think, 2 or 3 games in 14 days. So, you know, we got the Olympic break coming up, which will be a nice break for everybody. But then we come out of that and we start February 7th and through the end of April, we're going pretty hard. So, you know, you got to be aware of that. Rod's very conscious about making sure we give the guys the amount of rest they need. But it's more than rest, it's more psychological than anything else, because coming to the rink every day and trying to get up, you know, if you look at our record and you look at the teams we've lost to during the season, you know, nothing against those teams, but they've been mostly sub 500 teams. And, you know, we had a tremendous week last week where we beat Boston, beat the Rangers, beat Vegas at home, 3 really good teams, and lost to New Jersey, and they deserved to beat us. But we probably didn't bring our A game like we did in those other 3. So it is a long year, and there is ups and downs, and you try to manage that as best you can, and more importantly, you know, keep the feel of the team from a mindset point. That's a good thing about Roddy. Everything stays positive. You know, it's a grind. It's a grind all year. It's a grind. But if we can be positive through the tough spots, I think that'll help us through it.
God, you make me want to touch on so many things. First of all, as we tape this last night, whoa, Tuesday night, what an atmosphere. Sebastian Aho scores in overtime against Vegas. So peaking at the right time. And with this particular year, the games that you're going to have to make up how much you're going to play. Vegas, who won the Tampa won the Stanley Cup last year, was a 3rd seed. Of course you want to win the division, the gauntlet of the great teams in the East. You want home ice advantage, but when you look at all of it and looking how rest fits in, I guess what's your thought process in factoring all those things?
Yeah, you always want to finish as high as you can, but you can't do that at the expense of going into the playoffs either tired, wore out, or, you know, again, the emotional side of this game is hard. And so you want to make sure, hey, we're going to try to win every night. That's our goal. We're going to try to win every night. But saying that, you know, it's not, you come that last month, you know, it's not jeopardizing playing Freddie back-to-back games, you know, just to try to get an extra 2 points in the standings. You know, again, I'll emphasize we want to win every night, but you also want to be careful about how you use your players. You want to keep them sharp, but you don't want to overuse them either. And I think that's an important strategy that we need to manage.
One of the things I want to get into for a while is your ability for a long period of time, being the veteran you are as a deal maker. Before, you've mentioned Rod a couple times. You know, Paul Maurice, good friend of both of us, he always used to say, coaches coach, managers manage. And that's always stuck with me. Because truthfully, I've seen coaches who try to manage too.
Yeah.
And You and Rod, right from the get-go, you work hand in hand. I've observed it. And you also validate everything that he's trying to do, which as the general manager, you're also the president. That's everything. Because if all of a sudden there's veto from up above, everything that's great here is not going to continue to build.
Right.
Can you just talk about the relationship that you and Rod have specifically?
Oh, we have our battles. We have fun. You know, it's not all guns and roses here every day. But you know, at the end of the day is, you know, we're not going to bring a player in that Rod doesn't feel comfortable that he can get the most out of and be good for us. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I've seen it over the years where guys get forced on them, and you know, it just never works out. So, you know, you want to have that open communication. We talk all the time about, you know, all our players, you know, if we could upgrade this position or that position, what we need to do. But, you know, like you said, what Paul Marie said, Rod's a coach. He wants, tell me my players and I'll make the best of them, and which is great. But, you know, with his background, not only as a player, but now being in coaching, and for a long time, everybody thinks he's just been a head coach, but he's been in coaching for a long time. He knows the league very well. It'd be foolish for me or for our organization not to get his input if we're talking about a free agent or from, you know, and July 1st or whatever the normal free agency day is. Rod loves being in my office because he loves being a part of it, and I love having him there. So, you know, I think we got a pretty unique and very special relationship. He knows what he's got to do. I know what I got to do, and when we need to sit down and talk, we figure it out. So, and it's always very open dialogue. We have a lot of fun together. I keep those guys on their toes. I think that's part of it with the whole coaching staff. But I think it's a very good working relationship and personal relationship.
Yeah, I think it's like our government from the standpoint of checks and balances. At the end of the day, Don, you're making a decision. I was just talking to our dear friend, who, thanks for bringing him in. He's moved on to Florida, but I call him 007 Rick Dudley. And I've tried to really learn more about analytics. And I asked Rick a couple weeks ago. I said, Rick, you know, how do you view, you know, analytics? And he made, I thought, Don, a great point. He said, it's not a competitor of, say, what the video tells you or what the eye test tells you. It's checks and balances.
Right.
Every type of department in facet is trying to achieve the same end, and that's to win and have success. And then he said, so if they don't measure up, what does it tell you? Do more work until you figure it out. Can you speak about that? I thought that was pretty prophetic about a guy that you have been so close with for years.
Yeah, no, it's a great way he put it. You know, like I say, you have a lot of tools in the toolbox. Let's use them all.
Yeah.
You know, if I need a hammer, why would I use a screwdriver type thing? You know, so, you know, we have all our scouts. Obviously, we have live scouts, video scouts. We have a great analytic department. You know, those are all tools that we have pros doing their jobs. It'd be foolish not to use all these tools. And I think Rick summed it up well. They don't always match up. You know, what video, you know, what our scouts see, sometimes analytics doesn't support. So we go back and watch more, and vice versa. So analytics might be out in front of guys that our guys aren't sure about. Okay, let's dig in, watch more. And you know, that's a good thing about in today's world with all the video of all the leagues. You know, I can flip on my computer and watch any game in Russia, Sweden, Finland. You know, there's no excuse for not knowing the players. But again, it goes back to you got a toolbox full of tools. Let's utilize them best we can.
There are legendary stories about you being here when it's still dark out and you're here. You know, you're wearing two hats. You know, after you stopped playing, you know, you ended up being, Reg Dunlop. You actually were Reg. Could you maybe, I've heard the story before, actually Scott Burnside, wonderful writer who, you know, fortunately is part of the Hurricanes umbrella right now, has spoken about your chronology as hockey was ending and then how everything after hockey gets started. Could you, for the people that haven't heard this, you know, the steps, could you speak about it?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, I was playing in the International Hockey League. I knew at one time I wanted to get into coaching, management, more management than coaching. But I was still a young person. I was 27, 28 years old, and I just decided, you know what, I'm going to start my own business. And I can remember that summer I was a free agent, and I had every team calling me as far as minor pro, the I, and the American League, and I said no, I'm committed. I'm going to start this, and I started my Porta-John business in Michigan and Ohio. And
what made you go into the Porta-John business?
I had a friend that had a business in the north part of Detroit, and I watched how successful he was. And it's I got all the lines. Some of them I can't use here, but
everybody needs that facility. I've met somebody who does it.
That's right. So, started with 25 units, and by the time I sold it 4 years later, I had over 1,500 units. So. It was something that got us started, my wife and I, and with our family, and having my daughter Chelsea. So, but it would have happened that year. Everything was going good, and then about March, Rick Dudley called me one day. And I'll never forget. It was a Sunday morning, and I'm in Toledo, Ohio, at my house. He's in Flint, Michigan, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Doing what I do on Sunday. I'm working on my trucks and my business." He said, "You want to play hockey today?" I said, "What?" And he said, "I'm short players. I only got 11 players. We got a game at 1:30 in Flint. It's like 9:30 in the morning in Toledo, 2 hours away." For some reason, I had refused all year because I had other calls, and I said, "Okay, I'll come." And I can remember walking in the house. I said to my wife, I said, "You want to go to a hockey game today?" She goes, "Where?" I said, "In Flint." "Why?" I said, I told Rick I'd come up there and help him today." She goes, "What? You haven't skated in 9 months." I said, I told him I'd play. So I can remember loading up the car, go up there, got up there like at 1:45, dressed, introduced myself, didn't know any of the players, of course. Went out and played that night.
You had 1-1.
1-1.
Checked the box
Did you?
score.
That's funny. I didn't remember that. And that was a Sunday. And so Rick said, "Could you help me out the next few games?" And the Wednesday game, I looked. The Wednesday game was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Well, on Wednesdays, I happen to do the west side of the state of Ohio. So I looked at my calendar. I said, I can make it there. So I actually drove to the game that night. I had my pump truck with me, my 500 gallons of sewage there, and pulled into the parking lot, my rubber boots on, and my everything else. And I walked in the locker room. I said, "Okay, I'm ready to go." That was the second game, and then he convinced me. I think I took the next one off because I had to get things in line, and then the rest is history.
Well, what a great way to create time and space. You come in with your the sewage truck. I mean,
right.
You should have a lot of room on the ice.
Yeah.
So then you end up becoming a general manager, I believe, in San Diego. I could miss some steps, Orlando, and then you eventually are assistant GM in Detroit. You win a Stanley Cup. Can you talk about then, 99, right from the get-go, being the general manager of the Atlanta Thrashers?
Yeah, I got the opportunity to go work in Detroit with Ken Holland, Scotty Bowman, Jim Devellano. It was a great opportunity. I had a great relationship with Jimmy Devellano through my years in the IHL with players and that, and Kenny had become somebody that I looked up to and talked to quite a bit. So they gave me a great opportunity. We went in there and won. I was fortunate to be part of that second cup there back-to-back, and got the call, went in a couple times, interviewed in Atlanta with Ted Turner and their whole crew there. And so I can remember going to the press conference, doing the press conference. That was a whole nother story. We'd have to do another show on that one. And then the press conference was over, and it was like 2 o'clock, and I looked around and nobody's around. I said, "Okay, what do I do now?" And so I asked the PR guy for Time Warner or Turner at that time, and he said, "Well, I think they got an office for you over there, And it was like, you're on your own, and which was scary at first, but then it became fun because you had to hire every department had to be hired, and so it was a lot of fun to build that and be a part of that, and I was fortunate to unlock the doors there and lock the doors and move on.
What was your first trade that you made as the GM of the Atlanta Thrashers?
It was an expansion draft. It was probably a bad trade. I think the one trade I made that the player lasted the longest with was a good old Michigan guy, Chris Tamer.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
he's just a heavy shot. He used to skate with him in the summer.
They played, I think, 3 years with us. I think he was the longest lasting guy from that roster. I said when that roster, nothing against, because some of those guys are still my friend, but when we had that expansion draft, I said that as soon as I get rid of you guys, the better off we'll be. That was so true. But good guys tried it, but it's just the times were a little different that time with the expansion draft, and we try to make the best of it.
Hardest trade you've ever made?
Hardest trade is probably Hossa. Danny Heatley trade was hard. Danny had come off his car accident, and I knew I was going to get the call from his agent that it was probably better for him to change places. So I wasn't necessarily surprised by the call. I was surprised I was able to make the trade as quickly as I did, and that's when I got Marian Hossa from Ottawa. And then when Marian is probably one of the best two-way guys you could ever see. You talk about Pavel Datsyuk and guys like that just play on both sides of the puck, but he's such a good person too. And I was trying to sign him, and I reached a deal, and then the agent, he changed agents, and so whatever happened, we didn't get the deal done. And I wanted to keep him. I just knew for our franchise it was the best thing, but we were at a stalemate. And when you trade players like that, it's hard to get a return that you can be happy with. You get a lot of pieces in the puzzle, but not the big piece. So that was probably the toughest one from knowing that what you're giving up and what you're probably going to get back was probably not going to be fair.
I think about it last night after the game, getting ready for today. I mean, you're a veteran of all veterans, truthfully. Kenny Holland was just on the show. I couldn't miss a guy or two. Lou Lamoriello, David Poyle, Jimmy Rutherford is an interim general manager until he hires someone. But when you first started as a GM in Atlanta in '99, I mean, those are the only guys that currently are GMs that were then. I mean, that speaks to all of your experience. Every trade's different, Donnie. But if you could extract the biggest lessons that you've learned from then until now when it comes to a transaction, because you've made just 2 gems off the top of my head in Niederreiter just about 3 years ago and Trocheck, of how experience has helped you, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing is when you early in your career, when you're looking at trades, you're always looking, how am I going to win this trade?
Yeah.
And you're always worried that the guy you're trading, if he turns out to be a star or something like that, it won't look good on you or the franchise. And I think what you learn is you don't have to win every trade. You have to make the trade that's best for your hockey club. And you want trades to work out for both sides. Yeah. The best trades I've made have worked out for both sides, and you know what? It makes it a lot easier to make that next trade with that team because, and I don't worry as much as what you're giving up is what you're getting, because if you're feeling a need that you really need, obviously age and contract all comes into it too when you're trading players. But if you're getting what your need is, if I trade a player that ends up scoring 30 or 40 goals someplace else, you know what? That's the trade we had to make to get this guy, and I don't have any issue with that anymore. I used to worry about that a lot in my young career. That you'd be a little bit gun shy to make that trade because you felt like maybe you're not winning it, and I don't really even look at that anymore. You try to find a fit for what makes sense for our team, and what makes sense for the other team.
Thank you for that candor. I don't even need to ask my next question because I was going to ask, take guys like Paul Fenton, who was the GM of Minnesota Wild when you traded Rask for Niederreiter, or Dale Talent when you made the deal for Trocheck. Truthfully, those have both favored Carolina big time. Would it have made it, if both those guys were current GMs right now, it wasn't your intent, but would it make it more difficult to have them as a trading partner again?
Oh, everybody's got reasons why they trade players. I mean, Niederreiter was not going the greatest in Minnesota at the time, and Paul just felt that, he wanted to get a change. And obviously Rask made a little less money, which helped them on their cap. So, I mean, there's some reasons there. The Florida trade, as good as it looks, I mean, Lucerne is
Yes.
becoming a pretty good player
agree.
there.
I
So,
agree.
you know, I think we've really got what we needed. We've talked about a lot
Yeah.
that we need a right-hand shot centerman, and Trocheck's that, and plus how competitive he is, and he's one of the guys that probably takes losses as hard as a few of our guys do. So, you know, you always hope that again, that you know there is some part of the deal that works out for that team. And you know, with Dale, I made a lot of trades with Dale over the years. You know, Dale and I, that wouldn't ever have an effect. He knows I wouldn't be going into a trade trying to make him look bad. I wouldn't do that with anybody. But you know, when you've been around for as long as I have, and you build the relationships, you know how guys deal and how they think.
Yeah, well, I think the relationships, which you have, is good or better. It's one of the things that, truthfully, I admire in you the most, because you have great, real relationships with everybody. We're just under 2 months from the trade deadline. I want to ask you about that in a second, because all Hurricanes fans, digging in fans, want to know. Before that, you have a bunch of guys that are impact players on your team that are either going to be UFAs or they're going to be restricted free agents. Is there a time, or has it already come? Because I know listen, fans need to know, you've already tried to extend, you know, these guys. Is there a time, because you just want to win this year and have that focus, that if it hasn't happened, you're going to put it on the shelf?
Yeah, no, we have these discussions daily. Tom and I do on a daily basis, you know, and we've made an attempt. We're close on a few guys right now that I think we can get some deals done here in the near future. And then, you know, the decision has to be made at some point, whether, you know, you just put it on the back burner, or, you know, even potentially if you're going to look to upgrade your team in a certain area, you might have to give up a piece. I'm not going to give up, you know, maybe it has to be one of the free agent guys. You know, I hope not, because, you know, we like our team right now. But all that comes into, you know, we've let free agents walk before. Because we thought we had a chance to win. We definitely want to put ourselves in the best position to win. But we also, you know, to your point, short-term success is great. It's huge. But you also got to keep in mind, in my position, is what it does for your franchise long-term. We want to be good for a long time. You know, we don't want to be a team that has success and then bails out quickly. You know, you hope when you get to that point, which we hope is very soon here, that you can have a run that lasts for many, many years.
Don, I'm looking at the Eastern Conference in our division. Holy cow! I mean, it's really, you know, I'm just the announcer, but so if I had more pressure, it would age me in dog years. So I can't. So when you look at all the teams in the Metro, then you talk about Tampa, back-to-back Stanley Cup champs, Florida, what a year they've had, Toronto, all their weapons. You saw one of the elite teams in the West. As you venture towards that trade deadline, is there an arms race, or over the years, do you do what the Carolina Hurricanes or past teams you've been with need to do, or if somebody makes a big move that, say, is in your division or conference, that then you feel the need to react?
100% the first way, not the second way at all. Teams are going to make deals.
Yeah.
We know that. You know, there's going to be a lot of teams trying to they may have a hole in the fence or need another forward. They're going to make deals. We can't worry about that. You know, we want to make sure if we're going to make a deal, it's something that's going to help the Carolina Hurricanes. You know, we got a great locker room. And, you know, trade deadline hasn't always worked out as well as people think it might have. You know, you look at teams over the years that have paid a lot of big prices for players, and haven't had the success. So, you know, you're bringing somebody in for the last couple months of the season, or this year it's even less, because I think trade deadline is March 21st, the last month of the season. There's an adjustment period with the players, with the coaches. It doesn't always work. It does work sometimes, and that's what that's the educated risk that you're taking, and you want to make sure you do all your homework. And it also comes back to, what am I giving up to get that player? You know, we've given up our first-round pick in this year's draft for Itzberry. You know, you know, in a cap world, you need young players coming. You're going to need draft picks. You're going to need that ammunition to be able to keep the Svechnikovs and Ahos and these type of players for all these years. You know, if we had an open system without a cap, which would be dangerous, wouldn't be as much of an issue. But I think the system is working for the NHL right now, and we support it. But I think we got to keep that in mind as we continue to build our roster, not only today but long term.
Great call. Okay, so I'm on a boat. We're both from Michigan a couple summers ago, and I'm with Zach Werenski's parents. And this was before he signed a bridge deal in Columbus, not the one that he just signed last summer. And I think Steve Yzerman had just gone back to Detroit as general manager. And we're hanging out on the boat. Ken, he's a cop, and his mom, Chris, tough as nails. And I said, well, truthfully, I think, because Steve Yzerman, it would have expedited the rebuild, because his back end was particularly thin. I said, I think he should give Zach an offer sheet, see what happens. And Roman Yossi, who married a girl from my hometown, was going to be a free agent the next. So who knows if you get Werenski and Yossi? Right. So my point is this: as long as it's economically responsible within a salary cap world, Donnie, I've seen all the hubbub, or if that's the right even word. I like offer sheets. In the case of Montreal, it was a tit for tat. I was in Greece when I saw Marc Bergevin the offer sheet to Aho. Kokaniemi has really played excellent hockey for 2+ months. How do you feel about offer sheets? I think it creates drama, even good controversy for the sport. What do you think of it publicly? And then do the GMs, do you guys ever have internal banter where guys are giving each other heat? It would be different if there was no salary cap.
Right. So first, let me clarify one thing. You're on a yacht. I'm on a rowboat when we're in our boats in Michigan. I just want to make sure we're clear of that.
Well, you're welcome on the yacht anytime.
But I support the CBA. The CBA has a lot of things in it that you can do. Obviously, as we said, we have a salary cap. CBA covers the draft. CBA covers free agency, covers offer sheets, and Sperry was a different situation because here's a player that we paid a lot of attention to. Same draft year as Andre. We spent a lot of time, watch this player. Very, very rare do you have an opportunity to go after a player at 21 years of age. Usually free agencies are all 27 or older. Nothing wrong with the age, but they're just older. Yeah. When you have a young player that who knows what his upside still is. We just felt that it was a situation that we've got real comfortable. I got real comfortable. Tom got real comfortable of making the decision. Had nothing to do with what Montreal had done to Aho. I mean, got Aho signed for us for 5 years. So, it was the right place, right time, right player, and we made a decision to go forward. And obviously, we got the player, and we're thrilled about it. And is there banter around general managers? Yes, there is lots of that. You can only imagine some of the stuff. And from my end, it was all pretty good, though. But we go on a daily basis that there's a lot of different texts going around, phone calls going around. It's I can show you some pretty funny things over the last couple of years.
I asked Kenny Holland when we dug in December, all the meetings that you guys have, whether it be the GM's meetings, Board of Governors meetings, who had some of the best one-liners, zingers over there. I think he mentioned Dale Talon. Who are the guys that pop out to you? Because you've been at those meetings for, over 2 decades.
Yeah, Dale have to be up there. And I also have to say Marc Bergevin, who was in Montreal. He's probably one of the funniest guys that I've been around. So, definitely the older guys, you can see it's changing to GM level. Like you said, when I came in, you had Harry Sinden, you had Glenn Sather. I mean, it was a pretty established crew in there. And I was just a little kid from Detroit that was just keep my mouth quiet and listen to these guys. Pierre Lacroix, some really good general managers, good people too. And it's changed a little bit now where it's 32 teams. Obviously, you're gonna have more people in the room. So there's not as much of that as there used to be, but I would say Dale, you could put Dale in front of anybody, and he's going to make everybody laugh and feel pretty good about it. And I'm sure there's a few I'm missing along the way there, but it's a good group of guys.
Okay, so you were there when former owner Peter Karmanos went in the Hall of Fame. So I show up early. I'd never been to the Hall of Fame. So the usher, nice woman, takes me to the 8th row, okay? And there's a guy leaning over the 8th row talking to 2 people in the 9th row. And the two people in the ninth row were your old owners, Mike and Mary Nilich, and the guy talking to him was Gary Bettman. The usher didn't know, so the usher wanted to get me to my seat, and so she essentially pushed Gary Bettman out of the way so I could get to my seat. I'm like, I'm cooked. I'm roasted like a Thanksgiving turkey. What is Gary Bettman like, when he doesn't have to be careful about everything? What is that personality like at the meetings with presidents and general managers like yourself?
Well, Gary's got a tough job, keep a lot of people happy, particularly 32 owners to start with, and then, working with the players on the CBA, and he's got a great assistant there with Bill Daly. But Gary can relax. We just had a board of governors down in Florida, and at the party where he can, relax, put a sweater on, take his coat off, and he's very, very down to earth. Goes around, talks to everybody. He shows up. What I'm amazed at, he shows up at every meeting that the league has, regardless if it's presidents, owners, GMs. They just had an HR meeting in Boston a week ago Monday, and Gary showed up at that. So I give him a lot of credit because he's got the thankless job. Obviously, nobody calls and tells him he's doing a great job. We all call to complain about something, and I think he handles it very well. So obviously, all my time around the league, Gary's been I think he's done a great job for the league, and he's very thoughtful as far as how he treats people.
Yeah, it was later on that night after that Hall of Fame induction, the party after. He and I were side by side in urinals in the bathroom, just us. But I figured, this isn't the right time. Maybe if I had the porta potty history. But Tom Dundon, I personally don't think this gets enough attention. From day one, you tell me, because obviously you manage the cap beautifully. From day one when he bought the team, the Hurricanes each and every day that ends in a Y have been a cap team. And whether it be in Atlanta or economic challenges prior here in Carolina, that was not the norm. And I think fans, that's what they care about more than anything else by about 10 country miles. Can you speak to that? Because Tom never seems to want to crave attention on that front, but that's a big deal.
Huge deal. I can just tell you, when I was nothing against my owners in Atlanta, but when I was in Atlanta, I was making a trade. It wasn't what the cap is, what's the cash. Now it's just the opposite. We don't care. We care about the cash, but we always care about the cap because we got to fit it in. But Tom's given us the tools that that every general manager would love to have. Anything we can do to make our team better, play within the rules, he's going to allow us to do. And knowing going into the year, what everybody doesn't even realize is, we'll end up spending $90 million this year in an $81 million cap system because, unfortunately, Jake Gardner's on LTI. So he's on LTI. You still have to pay him his $4.5 million, but we get that relief, which allows us to have the cap go up to $84 million. So now you take what we're spending at the cap, put in Jake, and we're spending $90 million. Tom does not get enough credit for that. Yeah. When it comes to the players, you see what we just talked about early on with the locker room, the weight room, the new practice facility. When it comes to taking care of the players and being the best we can, Tom's number one.
Yeah, unless I'm missing something, he has never, ever craved that type of credit because it's a game changer in every sense, and you know that better than anybody else being the president and GM. Okay, it's a fluid situation. As we tape this, your team's going to be in Ottawa tomorrow night. Do you know, again, just under a couple months out from the trade deadline, do you know a particular area? Have you thought about a particular area that you want to address with your team?
Yeah, for sure. I think what you want to watch over the next month is, Bear's been out. He's going to play here tomorrow in Ottawa, as you mentioned. And, he played well for us at the start of the year and then got COVID and got out of shape probably a little too much because of COVID because he couldn't do anything. Our third pairing with Cole Smith and Bear have done a really good job for us. but you also look at that's not a lot of two things, not a lot of depth. We do have a few guys, obviously, Chatfield and Keene and LaJoy down there, and probably missing somebody else that could come up. But if you can add a defenseman that could fit in that, play that 4 or 5 role, because if you're never going to replace one of your top guys if they go out, but if you can have somebody to take a step and take 75% of their minutes or something like that, it would be something that we need to look at. We feel like we're very good up front with depth. We got enough pieces there. It's just we're probably, again, I want to make sure it's nothing against the players we have here, but the depth is what I would say we should definitely keep in mind as we get closer to the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, in Tampa, right? They've won the last 2. They've probably had 8 or 9 NHL caliber defensemen, in both of those runs. Agents. I talked to a couple. I talked to 2 that that love you today. And just that I'm particularly close with. Todd Diamond, Mark Gambler, who represent Andrei Svechnikov. And they said to me, Don is unbelievably respectful with a great sense of humor. So like take Freddie Anderson, Claude Lemieux, the great Claude Lemieux, his agent, Pat Brisson representing Tony D'Angelo. Over the years, have you gotten along with all agents? Is there something that you've learned with experience that's made you better equipped to deal with those hard negotiations with agents?
Well, what you said, and Tom accuses me of being too nice sometimes to these guys, but they're trying to do. I know what they're trying to do. I know their goal. They know our goal. You can fight about it. You could swear at each other. It doesn't get you anywhere. I've had 2 agents that I clearly know I've lost my temper on, and neither one got me any place better. So I think the respect for what they're trying to do, and you just try to show them why. You paint our position of why we think it should be this. And there's also, there's some agents. I'm just going to tell you. If the end result is, let's just say a player's going to make $1 million, we should pay him $1 million. I have to offer him $1 because he's going to be at $2 million. We'll end up at $1 million, but he'll think he won.
Yeah.
So every agent's different. There's some agents that you can get right close to the number and they know that's where they are. There's other guys that they want to call their client and say, hey, they offer you $800,000, but I got you $1 million. So that's something that you learn through the years and dealing with what the styles of the different agents are.
Isn't it the same concept that you spoke about with regards to trades? You want it to work out that you don't feel like there's a clear-cut winner. It benefits both sides because then that makes you trading partners again. Isn't it the same thing? If you work well with the agent and he's not trying to win, he or she, it's going to make you work better in the future.
Yeah, and our position's a little different now because, I say, we're not trying to save money. We're a cap team.
Yeah.
So we want to have the best team we can, and cap is the most important thing for us to manage the cap. So maybe your client's worth $3 million a year, but I only got $2.2 million of cap space. And we want your player, he's going to be in a good environment and have a good chance. So some of it is, not only explaining it, but selling them on low cost of living, great city, play golf most of the time. We're in through a stretch right now where it's a little cold. But, the quality of life here, I mean, I've been here 8 years now, you've been here forever. The quality of life is pretty darn good in this area. So those are the amenities that you try to talk to players, especially when players have a choice.
If you got asked to speak at the Jerry Maguire Agents Convention, there's tremendous agents out there. I just mentioned a few. You were a pro hockey player. You've been a coach. You've been a long, long time general manager. If you were brought in as a guest speaker at the Jerry Maguire Convention of what you believe makes a good agent, A, B, and C, what would A, B, and C be? Well,
number one is honesty. Again, you get an agent call you on a free agent and say, well, I got 5 teams that have offered him this, and it's not true.
Yeah.
You lose respect for him right off the bat. So number one is you can't go wrong by being honest with people. That's just my number one rule. And you can read through it when somebody's not being honest with you. Two is when you're dealing with agents, the one thing that I really stress is, are you taking this to your client? You know, are you making this decision, or is your client making this decision? Because there's a lot of agents, especially, it's gotten a lot better, but, you know, wouldn't even take it to their client. You know, the answer is no. Well, what do you mean no? I'm offering you $10 million and you're not even going to take that to your client to ask them? So I always say, you know, the honesty factor, obviously number one, but two is the relationship you and your client have, you know, to be able to, you may not recommend a deal, but, you know, that's your choice. But, you know, I still think it doesn't even happen. It still happens now where players are unaware of what has been offered to them. I've run into it in this here in the last couple of years. So that would be another thing. And then the third is, you know, I joke about this with all my agent friends. You guys, you sign the contract and you go away because you made your whatever your percentages you're making. And these players, most of these players, they're young players. They need some hand holding through the process. I'm not asking you to coach them, not that, but to be a mentor and be there for them to answer questions. And that's why players switch agents. Mm-hmm. You know, I've heard it so many times where, I signed my contract, I haven't heard from my agent in a year except for the bill he sent me. You know, and that's, you know, this is a people's business. You know, people need attention. People need to be have people they can talk to that just not necessarily their teammates and their coaches and so forth. So, and that all comes to communication. You know, I think if you really break it down, you know, the honesty and communication. If you communicate in all different directions, manage up and down, you'll be a successful agent.
Good blueprint. Gosh, I could go on for eons. Well, you know me. But as we march towards a close, I want to briefly touch on. So I haven't touched on your presidential role, because I know that you're passionate about that too. Can you see similarities in? Because Raleigh gets called in terms of rapid growth. What Atlanta is, you know, is going to be Atlanta in X number of years. Can you see similarities in the two markets, differences in the two markets with regards to your presidential role?
Well, the Atlanta market was totally different because you had, you know, 3 other major sports teams in your city. A very diverse city that music was a big option. There's just so much going on there. And the other problem is, you know, the arena was downtown and people didn't want to spend an hour in their car driving down to a game and an hour back after. So there are way different challenges. Here, you know, the small market thing kills me because we're not a small market anymore. We're growing. That's an excuse. I don't let any of my staff members use it. You know, if you look at, and you've been here, so the first half of the year here now, you know, it's going to be the highest attendance this franchise has ever had for a number of people that have come through, and that's with a couple games with weather and all the COVID stuff going on. So, you know, we're up almost 30% right now. When you go back to non-COVID years, people are responding. Are we there yet? Absolutely not. We still got ways to go, but people are responding. This is a great market. I mean, we're going to prove it. You know, we're never going to be Toronto or New York or anything like that, but we can have success here. We got to manage our money. You know, we talk about players, spending our money on players. We got to be a little bit more careful. I know it's talking on both sides of my mouth, but my staff, you know, obviously we got a great staff, and we got some really key people, and that do a great job. But we also got to keep in mind the bottom line as we not only run the hockey team, but on the business side too. But you're right, I do have a passion. I enjoy the business side. I'm out to dinners with our sponsors and potential sponsors all the time, and I do enjoy trying to make this work for everybody here in the city.
You keep talking about honesty. I'll be very transparent. It's number one. Truthfully, all fans would choose to see the money spent on the players on the ice. And what I've always respected is that with regards to staff and whatnot, Don, you've always been completely transparent. There's no gray area, you know, none. Okay, so if it works for you, great. And if, you know, there's always been complete transparency, which I'm tremendously appreciative of. When you bring concerts into the building, all right, you're bringing in Bon Jovi, you brought in some great acts. So is there one, as the president, run on the building that you were particularly excited to see, or that you'd like to see arrive, that you'd be giddy about their particular show?
Well, after doing this for a lot of years in Atlanta, running that building here, I got to be honest. I'm not a big music person. I don't even know if I have FM in my car. I mean, I just.
Well, what do you listen to?
I don't.
Talk shows?
I don't even listen to radio most of the time.
Meditate?
I can drive for 14 hours to Michigan, never turn my radio on.
Are you serious?
Not miss a thing.
You talk on the phone the whole time?
No, not all the time.
Okay.
It's just.
That's just
but
you.
anyway, so but the music, the one. Actually, I was just talking to Tom Dunn about this. Is the one show that I've got to know. It was Garth Brooks when he was here. I was telling Tom funny because he's saying, "How do we get to Garth?" And I was telling the story about him a few different times. I've had some good opportunities with him, but I can remember he was doing 2 shows here, and my wife and I were up with him and Tricia right before the show in the green room. We're talking. It was we were up there at 7:30, going out at 8 o'clock, and I kept looking at my watch. My wife kept looking at her watch, and it got to be close to 8 o'clock, and I remember him saying, "Cheryl, don't worry about 8 o'clock. They're not going to leave." You know, all the people in the building. So it was kind of a funny story. But so I'm not a huge, but I do like, you know, it's all about getting to know people too. And whenever you have a relationship, you know, this Tripp in your business, you have a relationship, you always say, okay, I want to be a part of that. So, but the concerts are fun. I got to be honest. I'm not a big music, but you know, I'm looking forward to the Eagles coming here.
Oh.
And you know, we got some good shows coming up here with, like I say, Bon Jovi, and we've had some really good ones, and many more to come. So it's fun to be around, and that's my job as a president. You know, we have as many employees with the arena as we do with the Hurricanes, and that's why I like to come to the events, you know, to see those people and support them. And you know, if I'm in town, there's not an event I ever miss if I'm in town, whether it's a concert, a Disney show, monster trucks. Of course, NC State basketball, I come to every game because I not only want to be here, but I like watching their team play. So and Saturday was a huge win for them last weekend, which was much needed, but it was great to see. So, but I like to be I'm in the building. I come every day, 7 days a week. I'm in the building, and I love it.
Do you know the Eagles concert? I had never even been to a draft, even when I went as an afterthought in the 9th round. So I came, you know, and was with you when Svechnikov got drafted, and I saw the Eagles play at Texas Stadium the next day. So Svechnikov gets drafted on a Friday night. You know, my captain's son, Ted Drury, Jack goes Saturday, and then I get to see the Eagles. Wow, was that a weekend where did they ever put on a great show? Speaking of Texas, so as we close, Tom totally invested in a great way. How often, on average, do you talk to him a day?
I would say an average, no more than 8 times a day. Sometimes a little higher, depending on what's going on. But we have a lot of conversations about a lot of different things, and I learned a lot from this guy. I mean, obviously he hasn't been successful. He's not a very smart person, and he's got his new gig going now, his new pickleball pro league, and so that was one of our conversations today about what's happening there. So it's actually fun to hear all the things he's got himself involved. But we spend a lot of time on the phone when we have some very interesting conversations. Most of them all positive.
most interesting time or place that he has dialed up your cell?
Where I've been or where he's been?
You can go either way or both.
Well, as everybody knows, when you talk to Tom, you never know what he might be doing. But because he lives on the phone, I just don't know how. I swear he's got 3 phones going at the same time. Because I'll be on the phone with him for an hour, and then I'll find out that he talked to Roddy, or he talked to Bill Bernstein or somebody else for another hour. You know, like, and he talks to everybody. I don't know. I live on my phone. Yeah. I can't even imagine him if he ever puts his phone down, because so in the morning it's kind of a fun, because he calls me when he's getting the kids ready to drive them to school, and I usually hear the kids in the car going to school every morning. And now he's got a new dog that he's just got a trainer, it's a guard dog, And so he walks his dog, and he's going to kill me for all this, by the way. But, so everything he's got going on, I think I've heard most of it. What's good about him, though, by the way, he told me this right off the bat. If I'm busy and I'm on the phone, just call him back.
Yeah.
You know, because when he first took over, you know, I thought, I have to drop this call and get him and that. And he said, hey, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, just call me back. I mean, when he was buying the team, I'll never forget, he called me on Christmas Day and we talked for an hour. And I said to my wife, I said, this is going to be interesting. So, but he's like I said, I can't say enough good things. He's so passionate.
Yeah.
He loves the players, loves to win, and wants to give us every opportunity to do that.
No doubt about it, and I just can't help but mention, with a little bit of brevity, if you were still in the porta potty business, if Tom had your cell at that point, those would have created some interesting moments.
Yeah, that would have been fun. That would have been fun. Yeah, that would have been fun. Yeah.
I want to. I'm so thrilled to see. Obviously, I'm one of your employees, but to see us having the success, because I thought this past off season that you improved your team greatly, and I know the team's not played on paper. I've learned the hard way recently, you know, that, and it's a wonderful part of our fans that they get attached to popular players. And my job as you employ me is to call hockey games as you try to take the next step. And I just think it was gutsy. It was digging in. Obviously, games get more important in the months to come. And well done. It's the very definition of what digging in means to me.
I appreciate that, Tripp. Yeah, this summer was a tough summer. I still got a lot of emails from people and a lot of phone calls.
Trust me, I got a lot this weekend.
But I will say there's a lot of people have reached back out and said, you know what, you proved me wrong and all that. And our fans have been tremendous. It's been great support. So I can't thank them enough. We can't do it without our fans. And, you know, for them showing that kind of passion is great. You know, not every move we make is going to be what they wanted. But, again, we make decisions based on what we think are needed. I appreciate that because we've had it was a challenging summer, but I think at this point, as we're talking, things are going in the right direction.
And by the way, conversation for another day, as I think of Vegas last night and every night. The in-game presentation, this is like, you talk about Garth Brooks, this is like coming to a rock concert. It's unbelievable. Because I remember the days, the years where, quite frankly, right before warm-up, they'd be playing Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, I'm trying to it is a concert.
Yeah.
And which, I mean, I appreciate the heck out of that.
Chris Greenlee and his team do a tremendous job, and Mike Foreman oversees that department. And again, you know, new scoreboard from the Centennial Authority, all those things, they all add up. And but again, you got people that are very passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
And if you're passionate about what you do, you're going to have the best people doing the best job they can.
Okay, so since you wear your two hats and there's no pressure, when Tom came on, I said, Tom, if I send you a digging in hat, are you going to wear it? He said, no. I said, but with Whalers Night coming on Saturday, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I'm going to give this to you because you're a pure Michigan guy.
I don't look good in a hat, do I? But
I actually think I was going to ask you, when you play golf, that's for you too, pure Michigan.
Wow.
You wear two outstanding hats here on the manager and presidential
That's
side.
great.
When you do have time to play golf, which is only in the off season, do you typically wear a hat, or do you wear a visor, or do you wear nothing?
Nothing. And for a guy who lived on a TPC golf course in Atlanta and said during this COVID I would get out and play golf, I've played one time in the last 2 years, and that was our charity tournament. This job has gotten in the way of that, which is okay because it's paying off for us now. But Tripp, love being on your show, digging in. This is a special gift. It'll be worn. This one will be worn. I'll take this one to Michigan and wear that at the lake.
Wear that, and when you see our buddy Gary, we have a buddy, one of Don's best friends in Michigan in the chicken business.
Good old Gary, the chicken.
Yeah.
Mr. Chicken.
Thank you, Don. And just one last note. Since I started digging in as one of your employees, you've allowed me to do it. I'd like to think that it is. I don't do the interviews I used to do because Abby Labar is doing a great job for us. But I'd like to think it's improved my interviewing ability. But you've allowed me to do it. and I truly appreciate that. So can't wait to do it again. And again, I truly think that what you did in the changeover in the roster, and then when we had the COVID pause, there were games that could have been canceled right before Christmas.
Right.
It was Detroit and LA coming in. And I reached out to you, and I think a lot of GMs would have said, come on, let's get these things postponed. Yeah, you knew you didn't want to play a ton of games in March and April, but you said to me, no, Tripp, let's battle through it. Let's do it together. That's digging in. And you know what that is? That's leadership. So thank you for that, and good luck in the second half of the year.
Really appreciate being on Digging In, Tripp, and look forward to see you back at the rink.
Yep, don't let that shovel get in the way.
Yeah, you got it, buddy.
See ya. Awesome. That was a lot of fun. A ton of great content. I learned, Don and I have known each other for, 20 years. And I learned a ton about him today. So I know him quite well. And I learned a ton about him today that I didn't know. So I hope that you all found it interesting. Thank you to the great people at Voodoo Ranger for bringing it to us. You're not going to find a bolder, smoother, more delightful. I don't know if you consider IPAs to be delightful. Is that soft for me to say delightful? As the head of the Digging In podcast, you can be the judge. But I know that Voodoo Ranger is the real deal. So make sure that you enjoy it, do so responsibly, and responsibly go check out our merchandise line, diggintrip.com. Mentioned in the open of the show, the new Assassinating Aho winter hat with Finnish colors. 100% of proceeds going to the Oulu All-Stars. We were lucky enough to make a contribution to the Oulu All-Stars before this season. Sebastian Aho. What a joy that was. I never thought I'd do play-by-play. But to get to call an Assassinating Aho power play goal, I'll never forget that. That will always be a great memory. So that is why the hat is called what it is. Rate and review the show, as always, and do so. We can take hard criticism if that's what you feel on all audio platforms as well as YouTube. Until the next time, boy, enjoy the upcoming All-Star Week and All-Star Game. Hopefully the Hurricanes, Don Waddell's hockey club, continue to flourish. And hockey that's already been tremendously exciting through the first several months, here into late January, it only gets more exciting after this. Shortly, the Hurricanes Dig-In Player of the Month for January and the National Hockey League shovel will go to, boy, a ton of great candidates throughout the National Hockey League. We'll talk to you soon.
We're digging in with Tripp today, yeah. Today, yeah. Today, yeah. Today.